Hello. Welcome to the Video Insiders podcast. I'm Carlos Pacheco.
I'm Denis Carlos.
And we're back with another semi-regular episode. The summer is flying by. Yeah, we're doing okay. I don't, again, like my perspective of this podcast is that, there's a lot of podcasts out there and we don't need to be just like be another news podcast. So we want to come in after a few weeks or a few months of like working and giving our and sort of like seeing what's going on and then giving our perspective on the news. How you been, Denis?
Good. And remember, it's better to have quality than quantity. But
Exactly.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. The last few weeks, I've been busy. I was in New York for a week and just kind of been busy with work. It's pretty busy summer work-wise. But how about you?
Yeah, sort of the same. Busy summer personally and professionally. And I was also in Denver, Colorado for the first time ever for a conference called Stream TV, which we'll talk about later. But let's get straight into it and talk about discussion about what's been happening over the last couple of months. So the first piece of news that we want to sort of quickly talk about is YouTube's new monetization rules, new monetization criterias. Essentially, for those who do not know, YouTube has lowered the threshold, the entry requirements for monetizations for creators. Now, from everybody's perspective, that's essentially a shot to the TikTok and Twitches of the world to trying to, I guess, stem the bleeding more than anything else, right? Essentially, just to give you a little bit of an idea, now you just need to have 500 subscribers and 3 valid public uploads in the last 90 days, and either 3,000 public watch hours in the last year, or, which starts to get a little bit confusing, 3 million valid public short views. Now, details about this is that you don't specifically start getting monetization from ads. You just start getting monetization features, which is super chat, super stickers, super thanks, and the ability to promote your own products on YouTube Shopping. So it's not necessarily like you're going to start making, AdSense money from with these new criterias. Denis, I'm going to stop talking. What do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting to listen to you talking through it. I think, it's interesting to hear you say like it stopped the bleeding with TikTok and Twitch. You said was Twitch the other? Yes.
Well, Twitch. I would say bleeding Twitch. Twitch would be more like Twitch a long time play. Twitch and YouTube have been a long time on work. I would say Twitch isn't doing that great these days. Yeah. But I think with the bleeding is more about TikTok as the instant if TikTok monetizes at a YouTube level, YouTube's like in serious trouble.
Yeah, I think it's interesting on like where you said about TikTok and YouTube adapting to YouTube Shorts. So there's probably Google getting out ahead of making sure that they are top of mind for budding creators or creators to get monetized. And it's good press for them, right? For people to think that it's easier to get into these monetization programs. I think the thresholds anyway previously were pretty high. Like I have a YouTube channel, Coffee for Scalers, and that was in monetization before, but then it dropped out because I didn't have enough minutes. And I still don't, I think, even though I'm not that pushed about that. But I think it's interesting that they're lowering the threshold. So they've gotten good press about it.
Yep, definitely. Obviously, it's always a good thing when you help creators make more money on a regular basis, which is a thing. One thing that we hadn't sort of like planned to discuss about is, almost like has it been 6 months? Feels like it's been close to 6 months since Shorts monetization came into play.
Oh yeah.
It's getting close to that. And I'll give you my perspective. My perspective hasn't changed in that space. Is that I hear colleagues, I hear people in the industry being running into YouTube, and their YouTube reps just keeps pushing shorts without any context.
Oh, interesting.
As to if it's right for their brand, if it's right for their for their pipeline, and I think that's typical YouTube, like no context, and they're just in their mission, their goal. They want to do their thing, but they don't take your business into consideration. In terms of performance, I see still as a mixed bag. If your goal is to just grow your fan base or your awareness, it's still a good prospect. Although I do think that long term, sort of like fan. Now I don't want the word's not engagement. I want to use loyalty from fans is much lower from shorts. Like shorts is just like, entertain me now, I'll forget.
Yeah.
I won't come back to you unless you entertain me again, right?
Yeah.
And the algorithm doesn't help. It's pushing what's getting attention, and it's not pushing subscribers. So from my perspective is that you might bring a lot of subscribers, but they're mostly not going to come back compared to a regular video. And then finally, just anecdotally through friends who have very sizable channels, some of them are just completely dropping shorts because their regular video monetization dropped off the cliff once they were focusing on shorts. And they saw the opposite happen when they stopped doing shorts, which is really interesting, right? And they started making more money, they started getting more views on their regular videos. So YouTube's in a weird spot right here. There's dividing the creator base. They're pushing a format that isn't native to the platform, and they're to this day I have no idea what ad products they're pushing for shorts, and the monetization is a fraction. It's less than a fraction.
Has it increased any bit? Because I remember when we last caught up 6 months ago about this, I remember there was a lot of RPMs at 8 cents, 12 cents. Has it increased from that?
Not that I've seen.
Okay.
There's some fluctuations as usual with anything, but like it's just basically, I see people get, super hits, 10 million views only to get like, a few $100 out of that.
Yeah. I would say from what I've seen, I would say if you're creating content, hold in there. I've seen in the last 3 months, advertisers get a lot more excited about it and want to do it. So maybe you kind of have the Google ads machine of thousands of salespeople getting to all these brands and agencies now, because they were holding back as well because the ad products weren't as ready. But I feel like the reason they were doing some of that was because they probably didn't want to put the ad load too high. But from what I've seen, you still actually can't go in and just say, I want YouTube Shorts only. You can target mobile and Shorts will be in there. If you use a vertical video, it's more likely that you'll have the ad show there, but you can't report on it. So they're still not there with the ad product where you can say Shorts only. But it feels like it's very close now. You still can't do it contextually. You can do it via audience targeting. Contextual apparently is soon. And but the one thing I was going to say is, I actually, from everything I've seen, when you do target mobile only with ads on YouTube, it's not like they're charging you a fraction of the price. So I feel like the reason the RPM is low on the creator side is because the ad load is so low in there still. But I think that will increase. But I don't think they're like dropping their rates for shorts. I think the rates are going to be the same, but they just haven't upped the ad load yet.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like it's YouTube's. The history has shown that with time they get better and better. But it's still when we look at CPMs from 5-10 years ago on regular videos, they're a huge difference now. So I expect shorts to do that. But the thing is, to me, at the end of the day, it's like they need to move this needle faster before anybody else catches up. And I say anybody else, I'm talking about TikTok. If TikTok, I'm not even paying attention to TikTok monetization, but all I know is that I keep seeing news that TikTok's rolling out more and more creator funds or new ways to monetize creators, and that'll keep them coming to staying on that platform.
Yeah.
And when it comes to news these days, TikTok has replaced Twitter, has replaced a lot of platforms when it comes to
Yeah.
in news. So that's a lot of headspace to take away
Yeah.
from the YouTubes of this world.
Speaking of which,
so
Threads.
what
Really
Threads.
briefly. Wow, it had some. Well, that happened since we last talked. What a launch! And
Yeah,
I
it was
heard
amazing.
someone saying yesterday that there's ads in there even already. But yeah, what a launch, right?
Yeah, I'm a little annoyed about everybody sort of boasting the 100 million, accounts.
But it has dropped. Mark Zuckerberg came out and said it's tens of millions that are actively on there.
Yeah, but again, the thing is, the context here is everybody's showing off about the fact that it hit 100 million within a week, right? Facebook and Instagram have 3 billion users each. How easy, when you think about just the reach percentage, organic reach for Instagram, Facebook, that's about right in terms of the amount of people reach. But at the same time, comparing a launch of Threads versus a completely new product with absolutely no ecosystem, to me, that's just apples and oranges. Because, again, it just shows the power of the network effect, right? Again, it's not a complaint, but I think it's when everybody's like, oh, ChatGPT took, X amount of time, this took X amount of time. Well, I give much more respect that ChatGPT had zero awareness, went from zero to that, and had no network effect. Microsoft wasn't even attached to that at this point. Or it was attached, but didn't make a big deal out of it, right? Didn't push it in their ecosystem. Anyways, that's the big context that I don't like
on it. I think with Threads that it was amazing to see the love that's there for Instagram.
Yep.
I was amazed by that, and I was amazed by as well the way there's such a nastiness around Twitter these days that was perfect time, and it's even helped Mark Zuckerberg's reputation a little bit. And one final thing, they didn't launch it in Europe, so it was launched in the UK, but not Europe, and it still isn't. But anyway, let's park Threads.
I totally agree. The Twitter, I no longer engaged on Twitter. I might go in, and then I'm always surprised to see who's still tweeting. But I'm not no longer that. I even experimenting now that
I can see
launched,
Carlos's face right now, and he's like a look of disgust in his face when he's talking about it.
And I even experimenting with verification on Instagram just to see if that did anything for me, because I have a personal thing where I'm trying to change my username to get my full name, and it's one of those things where it's they're not letting me do it, but there's no account attached to it for some reason. So it's weird. Anyways, I tried to hack it that way with getting verification. It didn't work. I canceled my verification within minutes. So it's all good. Anyways,
I noticed you're posting on LinkedIn though recently. That's cool.
When was that? I'll be honest with you. I shit post on LinkedIn. My goal on LinkedIn is to throw shade to everybody that's so LinkedIn is such a virtue signaling platform. It's such an annoying platform. I'll support friends and all that sort of stuff, and I'll like certain things, but oh man, the amount of vapid blog posts on LinkedIn that are just made to game engagement. Oh my God, what such a platform. Anyways, I like valuable platforms. I honestly, even though Reddit had some issues over the last couple of weeks, it's still a super valuable platform for community and engagement. Discord and Threads I'm enjoying a lot because of the positivity around it right now, and the lack of blue checks. Who those people are. All that sort of stuff. So yeah, I mean, the ecosystems is definitely shifting in that space.
Okay.
The next thing that we wanted to discuss is this little, I just want your perspective on it. Google being in hot water over video ads, because that's your ecosystem, and basically the news is that, there's reports suggesting that advertisers may have been paying for more money for ads that don't actually meet Google's standards.
Yeah.
What's your perspective on this?
Yeah, there's a company called Analytics that it looked like a very comprehensive piece of research where they basically partnered with a few agencies who manage a lot of YouTube spend. And they basically aggregated a lot of data of how much of the ads were served on YouTube or off of YouTube. And if you're not that sophisticated at setting up YouTube campaigns, or if you don't look at all the settings buttons and stuff, you have to opt out of the Google Video Network because you're automatically opted in. So what they're and it's a bit more complicated than that. There's two main ad products, let's say, even though it's a bit more complex. But one is called video action campaigns, and the rest is non-video action campaigns. And video action campaigns, they've actually bundled a lot of Google Video Network. In non-video action campaigns, you can opt out, but inevitably, a lot of people don't opt out. So what that means, if you're an advertiser, is lots of advertisers and agencies ran a lot of their ads for video on the Google Video Network when they thought they were running YouTube. So yeah, but it's interesting. If you look at TV as an example, TV will be okay, give me $1 million and we'll place it in lots of different areas, and you can't be too picky where you run. So Google's kind of doing some of that, where they're saying, we own a video network, mostly YouTube, off of YouTube, and we're going to place ads in both. At my company, Precise TV, we always opt people out of this because we don't think it's the best if you think you're going on YouTube and then you suddenly are on Fox News or somewhere like that. So I think the report got a lot of media attention, and I think some people are starting to realize that YouTube's more complicated to buy than they first thought. And a lot of people are looking into this now, and some people are saying, I want my money back. I didn't know I wasn't not on YouTube. So that's the story.
As somebody who used to buy YouTube ads, I know that, running ads on YouTube's, on Google's platform is it's a degree on itself. You sort of, and a lot of companies just press a lot because, we're now in an ecosystem where every single company and brand runs their own ads, right? And they're all doing their own little thing. And that's what happens. You get inexperienced ad buyers, okay, I'm going to run, $50 campaign for post type of situation. And, your ad appears on everything. And there's just a huge amount of ads appear on platforms that you didn't know that it's part of the YouTube Google network, all that sort of stuff. It's advertising 101 on these platforms situation. But, at the end of the day, that's, bashing on Google advertising is the media's job these days because they've all realized how much they've given away to Google. Everybody's we're in a space right now where in the Canadian ecosystem, there's a boycott because news got removed from
I read
Google and Facebook and
Facebook, right?
Yeah. And now all the media companies all the newspapers are boycotting advertising on the platform. And I'm like, you're not even a drop in a bucket.
Yeah, you guys are going to make a dent.
They don't care. That's not what the thing is. Again, I can go into a rant about this thing, but it's anybody with half a brain in the past 10 years knew that these platforms were mining audiences away from news media and all that sort of stuff. And then news media just kept feeding the beast and not building their own ecosystem. New York Times being the perfect example of somebody that woke up and said, wait a minute, we need to build our own moat and control our own audiences and get people to come to us instead of just relying on Facebook to share our news. But the Canadian ecosystem is very dependent on government subsidies and tax dollars. So they're I'll be honest, they're just lazy. And they just like, they just never thought about, building. There's a couple of them that did. There's La Price in Montreal who basically shifted their model and started, building a subscription ecosystem. They're not complaining as much as everybody else. So anyways, that's again, that's another tangent in this space. It's really interesting to see. And it's a little bit outside of our video description, video insiders podcast, but I think at the end of the day, it sort of affects all the whole media, online media. So it's interesting for us to sort of like discuss about it.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're about, I would say midway through this podcast, and I wanted to sort of like shift gears and discuss my recent experience going to my first ever OTT FAST, streaming conference, which was thanks to the company I work with, Just for Laughs. I went to a conference called Stream TV in Denver. It was an interesting experience, to say the least, from my perspective, because essentially up until this point, I've been working in the OTT FAST ecosystem, just by myself in a Canadian ecosystem that's very isolated from the US. And being around people and other companies doing the same thing sort of like gave me a whole new perspective. First things first, I have so much notes about the space. I want to write a blog post about it, but right now I'm just too lazy to do it. But essentially, I'm not a salesperson, right? So I like being behind the scenes and all that sort of stuff. So being very outgoing in conferences takes a lot of energy from me. So I felt.
Did you know a lot of people at it though?
No, I did not.
Okay.
That's the thing, right? I knew a couple of reps. And there were a few reps that I finally met in real time. They're extremely generous with like, their time, and they gave me a lot of insights and stuff like that. But, the way it was funny because it's not a huge conference. I would say like maybe less than 1,000 people, were at that conference, and everybody seemed to really know each other. And I was like, wow, and then that was really interesting to see.
It's like you being at VidCon.
Exactly. It's like me, 40-year-old, mid-40s guy showing up to VidCon and hello, fellow kids. Except I was a kid and everybody else was the adults, right? Because they didn't know each other for so long. So that was sort of my perspective. Things that I learned in the ecosystem is, being in the Canadian space, the fast, for us, fast is like new and fresh. And in the US, it's like, it's matured and it's getting consolidated pretty quickly. And there's actually a downturn in channels where, the LGs and the Samsungs of this world are cutting back in terms of purging channels more than they're keeping channels. And the reason for this is that, every single distribution company and producer has been pitched, creating their own channels over the past couple of years. And everybody did because it's such a low barrier. I remember being approached by so many companies that all they would do is scrape your YouTube channel and then turn it into a fast OTT channel, right? Those days are over. It's quality over quantity now. So they're looking for channels that are much more robust, maintained, and they're also purging the level of channels that just look all the same. For example, there are tons of distribution companies that are sitting on, various movies in the same subject matter, and every single company out there is launching a greatest hits movies channel. So if you have 20 to 30 different companies running greatest hits movie channels, well, who has the greatest movies at this point? Nobody. Everybody's sort of like putting like mediocre channels, right, with a couple of hits once in a while. But so now what's happening is that the big platforms are sort of like cutting back on that space and creating and just choosing quantity over quality. Quality over quantity, the opposite. That's sort of like the main sort of like interesting aspect of it. But also listening to everybody talk about this space. what I see when my big picture perspective coming out of this is that it's really funny to see all these TV networks, all these startups, all just essentially trying to build YouTube. That's all they're trying to do. But the thing is, the perspective that I have is like YouTube is very unique, and I don't want to blow smoke up YouTube's butt, but it's like there is a miracle that they created where they have this ecosystem where you can upload your content, manage your library, monetize it, and not have to think and build an audience and not have to think about anything else, right? Whereas when you're building an OTT channel, you have to think of the software, you have to think of the ad serving, you have to think of the sponsorships, you have to think of the content on a regular basis, you have to think of your relationships. There's so many pieces to it, right? And in the OTT FAST ecosystem, there's 50 to 100 different companies all doing the same thing, all trying to take that business, and everybody's sort of like working with each other, but also competing with each other. And everybody's like worried about audience development, and everybody's fragmented in this space. It's so fragmented. It is chaos. There are starting to be, there's a little bit of consolidation happening in the space. You know, there's the Viacoms, the Paramounts, there all that sort of stuff, and the Foxes that are creating their own moats in this space. But there, because of the low barrier of entry of fast and free ad supported television, there's no real loyalty in that space, right? You sort of like the only reason you'll come back is if the channels are good or unique. But what happens if I run a channel that I serve on Pluto, that I serve on Tubi, that I serve on Zumo, that I serve on Samsung? It's the same channel across the 4 or more different platforms. It's like, but where are they? What's the differentiation here, right? So each platform is trying to think about ways to sort of like create unique experiences so that people come back to it and stuff. So, anyways, it was really interesting to see, the big picture of how things are moving and shifting in that space. And that's. I feel like you have questions to me. You're looking at me like you got something to ask.
It was well, I was just going to ask you there at the end. Was YouTube there?
Not at all. Google TV was there.
Google TV.
The funny part is that there were a couple of there was one MCN there, and they had to pick a litter because there are tons of content producers and content distributors there, and nobody from the YouTube ecosystem was there other than this one. I call it MCN, but like the YouTube network. And they got their business.
And they had a stand, did they?
No, they didn't have a stand. They just did the whole networking thing in that space. I met with them, and as usual, I meet like happy to connect and all that sort of stuff. But it was really that perspective that was interesting. The YouTube, there's nobody from YouTube. YouTube is just not spoken there because it's very TV. At the end of the day, it's still very TV, right? There's no user generated content discussed in this space. The people.
What was your motive for going? And did you get what you wanted from it?
Well, my motive for going was build relationships with new platforms, because that's the game in this space, is like connecting with platforms that you don't often have access to. Is obviously education, learning about the space, what's going on, who are the big players, and obviously insights from the leaders in this space, right? Seeing what they're discussing, what they're worried about, and also other people that are like medium to small businesses, right? One of the things that was really interesting is a new foundation was launched while there, and again, I don't have notes on it, but they're called the ISA, Independent Streaming Associations. And essentially, what it was is a group of I would say they're much bigger than what I deal with, but they're small. They're not the Comcasts of this world, right? They're the Tastemades of this world, or the Fuse Media of this world, right? They're medium and they're growing. They're just very niche networks. But at the end of the day, they don't have the back ends of Viacom, Paramount, and Fox, right? So they're very, independent. So this association is meant to help all the small players sort of like help each other. And this is what my biggest, and I reached out to them right away because I thought that was awesome. One of the things that I found really interesting about this space is that there's absolutely no community. There's nobody helping you out of the goodness of their hearts. Like YouTube has this amazing community where creators help each other, creators gather, creators share, all their insights, all their learning, on Reddit, on Discord, on YouTube itself, on social media, and everybody connects in real time. In the fast OTT ecosystem, nobody's sharing anything because they're all competing with each other and they don't want to give anybody secrets, right? And and it's so weird because what ends up happening is like somebody like me who's like 2-3 years into the space is basically learning by mistake, or only people teaching me things are my suppliers and my partners, and that's it. And nobody's giving me like unbiased perspectives, right? And when the ISA, they actually reached out to me this week just to have some questions as to like why I'm interested in the group. And I was like, I basically told them that. I was like, there's no way for me to sort of like pool connections in this space to understand how ad serving, what's my ad serving solution, what are my options, who like just learning about programming, all that sort of stuff is not being shared by anybody. And I think that's a big missed opportunity for somebody that can create a centralized ecosystem or community in this space. And I believe the ISA is trying to do that. But again, I'm hopeful, but also I'm wary because they're all TV people at the end of the day, right? They're still TV people, and they're still going to come at this with this very, tight-lipped, I don't know, like situation where it's like, to me, I just want like a Discord group or a Reddit group, like to help everybody. Actually, after this call, I might do some research on Reddit and might create some sort of like subreddit just for the hell of it, just to see if there's anything that comes of it. Because again, at the end of the day, like, I'm asking colleagues, again, I'm going through this process right now where I'm looking for ad servers and trying to understand the ad waterfall situation. Sorry for all the terms here, but and everybody's giving me their completely biased perspective.
But like would you not, what about, but you mentioned someone earlier like Tastemade and stuff. Are not some of those companies who are like the old ecosystem players like Facebook and YouTube and stuff?
No, because they've evolved.
More willing to share. Okay, wow.
Yeah. You're right. Tastemade, and the thing is, that's why Tastemade is part of this ISA, the founding members, right? They're probably coming at it with that perspective. But I've yet to see, I'm 2 months post, it feels like 2 months. It's probably 6 weeks since the conference. It's still not, they're still not, I don't see any public, avail or even invite only discussion group. I don't see anything happening yet. And again, this is the whole thing where it's like, they're probably, spending way too many resources to build this instead of just like, just experimenting online, right? Essentially, to me, what I don't like about the part that annoys me about the world of production distribution is that they tend to like spend so many efforts to build something, not knowing how the audience is going to handle it. Where we live in a world of social media and social platforms that let you experiment, that let you figure out your audiences, right? It's like, why don't you have already the Reddit subreddit of the ISA? Why isn't there already a public Discord where you can already start seeing people coming in and vet, see what people are asking or discussing, and then use that intelligence to build your platform. Now they're probably spending a lot of resources and a lot of time figuring out this.
Yeah.
I would expect a paywalled, membership, which I think is okay, but also limiting. Like they better, like, I have no idea if it's going to be a paid membership. Even if it is it going to be like a crazy membership fee? Like, is it $100 a month? Is it is that $100 a year, or is it like $1,000 a month type of situation, right? Like, memberships in TV entertainment ecosystems tend to be a little bit, prohibitive for startup companies in this space, right? So, again, it's all this big black hole right now. So that's I'm very hopeful that whatever they built is very useful for, startup companies, networks, again, networking, all these sort of thing that, if all you're doing is working with Paramount, Samsung, Tubi, those are great, but there's always, in this ecosystem, there's always new platforms, there's new niches popping. And how do you get to meet them? How do you discuss with them? What's the new? And again,
I'd imagine what will happen in this ecosystem will be like the earlier days of YouTube, where it's like original channels, and like some of those big players investing in smaller companies to have original content to differentiate. Because what you said earlier is like your channel runs on 6 different providers. Wouldn't you think that something like that will happen again? Yeah.
Yep. There's differentiation. There's uniqueness. There's there's beta testing happening with original productions. I believe Roku invested in a few originals.
Oh yeah.
There was the Weird Al movie. I think the Weird Al movie that they did was
a
Roku original. And there's now Tubi's talking about originals, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And
okay, so it's happening.
That it's happening. It's just I think it's way more careful than I don't think we're seeing. Okay, I think I've run through a little bit of this perspective, but I want to sort of like end our podcast. We're getting long here on the tooth here. Is let's talk about the strike and because again, the question you asked sort of made me pivot to that way, because obviously streaming platforms are not profitable, right? So, fast OTT is another monetization ecosystem, but I don't think it's like, for original productions, there's no way it's sustainable, right? So right now it's running on, library content. So anyways, that's we're going to stop it there, but let's talk about how the strike affects online creators, video creators, and anybody in this space. I believe you're a fan of the Pivot podcast.
Yes, yeah. You work with Scott before? Yeah.
Very, very briefly. I have a positive experience working with him.
So I was listening to Pivot this week, and they were talking about, it was mostly about the writer's strike. And what I thought was fascinating was Scott Galloway talking about the fact that first of all, that the late night talk shows have been down now for, I don't know, whatever amount of weeks or months it is. And he was just like, these new habits that are forming where people are now consuming TikTok or YouTube or other shows, that is going to be a change. Just like the way when COVID first happened and there was no production for a while, and people moved to Netflix and they never kind of came back onto linear TV, and linear TV lost a lot, and YouTube. His point of view was, Bob Iger actually got kind of angry this week when he was asked about it. And he was like, there's a squeeze in the industry. I can't believe the actors are now going on strike and they need to get real about this new world. And they were saying how unlike Bob Iger that is, that usually he's pretty calm, collective in front of the press and everything. Maybe in the background he'd be like that. But basically just that the writer's strike and the actor's strike that's happening right now, that is probably most impacting the more traditional media companies. And companies like Netflix do a lot internationally where it won't disturb them as much anymore, and it'll eat right into their hands right into YouTube's hands, TikTok's hands with audiences. And those audiences, once they get addicted to TikTok, YouTube, particularly those older audiences, they're not going back. So yeah, his point of view was that like someone like a Netflix would probably be happy that like this relatively that it continues for longer, while it's going to impact the more traditional players, Disney, Fox, and others over time. So I thought all of that was fascinating. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, here's the thing: like, you know, I'm, you know, middle aged. All I know is that anybody younger than me has grown up with social media, content, right? And anybody under 20 or in mid 30s right now is completely addicted to shorts and TikTok and Instagram, right? They don't care about TV. They don't care about live TV.
Yeah.
So yeah, Netflix and stuff are still in their ecosystem, and that will be there. But they're growing without actors. They're growing with creators, and that's what the creators are. That's what I think the actors are sort of missing the boat on. They're all afraid about AI replacing them. AI is not going to replace them. The online creators are going to replace them. We all talk about the last, I just went to see Mission Impossible. And it's like, when you think about the movie stars, box office movie stars, there's hardly any anymore, right? There's not a lot of actors anymore that you'll just like, no matter what they make, you're going to go watch them. I'll watch them. Tom Cruise is one of the last ones, and maybe there's a few other ones, but like, think about Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt is great. I love a great actor. Would I go see every one of his movies? Not really. Again, that's me. But whereas the creators all built their own niche spaces and niche audiences that are extremely devoted, and a platform that reaches millions of people at a click of a button without anybody telling them what to do in terms of content. Unscripted content, original creators. If this strike lasts as long as everybody's sort of like, how can I say, is expecting it to do, like, I think up until the end of the year, at least October, Q4, I think it's going to be messy. I think we're not going to see the repercussions of it for a couple of years, but I think it's going to. I think they've basically the AI part is valid. The AI part, actors' issues with AI and studios replacing them with AI is valid, but I think they're missing the vote. They're missing the point as to what's really causing the danger for them.
Because it's really that like everyone's gone all in on streaming and it's not profitable, and these companies are just having to now pivot back. And AI isn't their biggest problem right now. It's a lot of money being sucked out of there as the strikes are going to go on, which is crazy. But what were you going to say?
Yeah, just as we speak, speaking of pivot, like Kara's podcast, which is I forgot the name.
Kara Swisher Show or something, is it called?
Yeah, it's
or something with Kara.
Yeah, it was. Look up Kara Swisher, your founder podcast. But as of this morning, and we were recording this on July 20th, 2023, on with Kara Swisher. She just has, the one that she uploaded today is an interview with Fran Drescher. So who's the head of SAG?
Who is that?
She's the head of SAG, right? The representative of SAG. And again, the role was but she used to play the nanny in this old American TV show sitcom. She was well known back in the 90s and early aughts. But she's now representing SAG, and she's the one you probably saw on YouTube videos, ranting at Disney and all the platforms. So,
yes, they played a snippet of her. Yes. They played a snippet of her in this, and she was saying how looking forward she was to getting her on. Oh, cool.
Yeah. So listen to that podcast. We'll link it in the show in case people aren't listening to it. But it's really interesting that she's representing them. Again, she's got experience in the space. I don't want to be negative against her, but she's also hasn't acted for feels like 20 years. And is like an old generation of actors, right? Like, she's sitcom era actors, right? When the sitcoms were king. She's like, 20 years. And is like an old generation of actors, right? Like, she's like, sitcom era actors, right? When the sitcoms were king. She's like, when the sitcoms were king, So it's like, to see her perspective. I haven't listened to a podcast. I will today, but that's an interesting space. I think it's just
Should be
chaos.
good, yeah.
I think they're basically. I think Scott's perspective is on the ball. They're shooting themselves in the foot at the end of the day. Like, I agree that there's something to be said, but like there's something to be, something needs to change. But I think that the way they're striking right now is preventing, sort of like is, I don't know. They're just, they're helping their own demise in certain aspects, right? It's like, again, the audiences are just not there, and it's like, oh, instead of like focusing your work on potentially adopting new platforms or the new ways audiences engage with creators, you're focusing on this side of the business. Again, you think about like Joe Rogan, right? Joe Rogan like created his own ecosystem because he potentially saw that like he wasn't getting what he wanted out of what his TV gigs, and it's like he created his own ecosystem and he benefited from it. There's tons of other actors that have done this, have just decided to roll up their sleeves and create their own content and own audiences, and they've benefited from it. They're not the ones complaining. Trust me, they're not the ones complaining. They're doing well.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's my perspective. Go for it.
I think we'll park it there. I was actually just thinking about. I think we should end on this. Barbie, are you going to it?
Funny enough, I had a discussion with my wife this morning about Barbenheimer. That's how you say it, right? That's how you pronounce it, Barbenheimer.
I don't know.
We're definitely going to go see. The decision is Barbie first this Friday, and Oppenheimer probably the day after.
Nice. Nice.
It's going to be a bad weather.
What do you think it'll do box office wise?
Here's the thing: the numbers. That again, I'm no expert in this space, but I'm a huge Chris Nolan fan. I love his movies. I listen to his soundtracks to his movie all the time, it's just impossible mathematically that Oppenheimer makes as much money as Barbie. Barbie is like less than 90 minutes. Oppenheimer's 3 hours. Just the math of the screenings of that, you'd have to look at, if you'd want to like go super analytical, you'd go in to see how many theaters are carrying Barbie, how many theaters are carrying Oppenheimer. Yeah. I would assume it's pretty equal because the trend, because of the online virality of this meme, right? Probably every theater is like, let's make sure we carry both so that we can, I actually saw a report this morning that they were expecting something like 200,000 people are at least planning to see both movies back to back.
Wow.
So that's I think it's a brilliant
Barbenheimer. That's what it's called.
Right? What I think is amazing is nobody in marketing or Hollywood would have been able to come up with this, right? And this is 100% community created, right? That I love this, and I love the fact that somebody in their marketing ecosystem, in the marketing teams of both movies, decided to just, let's just embrace this and just roll with it.
Yeah,
and it's like boom, like magic, right? And cool. To me, it's just the power of the internet in this space, right? It's like nobody would have come up with this, in a marketing meeting. But I love that it's happening. I love that. I love the ecosystem. So cool. I think at the end of the day, I think Barbie will probably make the initial brunt, and then Oppenheimer feels like it's the type of movie that has long legs, meaning that it'll last for 3, 4, at least 2 months in the theaters and make long money. So what do you think?
Barbie, I've never seen anything like the hype for it. Just like it's been a marketing machine. I think it's going to be a top 30 box office ever, but I could be wrong. Yeah, who knows? But I'm liking all the hype, and I'm excited to see what it does.
Yep, same. We'll see. We'll talk about it in the next podcast.
Cillian Murphy, I saw as an Oppenheimer. That's cool.
But also, you got to think of like the audience. The audience, sort of like the mass audience versus mass. You got generations of kids growing up with Barbie, right? This is a whole family type of like movie. So it makes total sense that Barbie's going to kill
nostalgia.
It. Right.
Yeah.
So
one last thing, if people like the fact that we discuss kind of more in the news today, let us know somehow. Get in touch with us. I know that Carlos is really big on LinkedIn and Twitter after today.
LinkedIn, I think is, social is getting a little bit messy for me. And, it's like, it's tough to see like what people commenting, but I think you shared the podcast a couple of weeks ago.
I did.
And we saw got a good reaction. So I think LinkedIn's a good audience for us. I'm not a big fan of like, throwing podcast shares into a completely random feed. So LinkedIn is a very good platform for us, and maybe one day we'll get organized and have an actual Discord or something or something or where people can engage and ask us straight up questions.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. It was great catch up. Great things to talk about. I always feel like we're coming into these episodes with like nothing to talk about, but then we have like, we're almost an hour in and it's like, we can keep on talking. So it was great catching up, and we'll see you everybody on LinkedIn and on Threads. Dennis, are you on Threads?
No, I haven't created my proper profile yet. I will though.
So you're not on Instagram then?
I am on I've stopped using Instagram, but I have an Instagram handle for my podcast, which I have created a Threads for, but not my own personal. I stopped Instagram before. It was a waste of time. Too addictive.
Yes, I agree. All right. So LinkedIn it is. Engage with us on LinkedIn. Have a good one, everybody.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.